bombing stick.
Hello. Hey, Bob.
Hi, hey George, how are you?
Good.
I was going to ask you a question before the meeting here about blueberries. Do you feed them in the fall?
I feed them in the fall, spring.
In the spring, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have a good year this year?
I had a great year this year. Still got a problem with the fungus, but
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's every year. And usually it's under control, but I think the what I was using was a little old and wasn't as effective. But we still had a bumper crop. We never had more blueberries than we've had this year.
how's this fungus manifest itself?
The blueberry, it's called mummyberry. You can look it up. What happens is the mummy, before they turn purple, they start to shrivel up, they
Uh,
get pink, and then they go to an all white and they become really hard.
uh,
I try to pick them off when I see them, and this year I picked off a lot.
yeah.
But like I said, we had a lot of blueberries this year and we did really well.
Yeah, we did too. We didn't protect our berries. We had a lot of turkeys and other birds, but our plants are a lot younger than yours, but they did pretty well.
Birds are the bane. I mean, they're just the toughest thing.
I love birds, but I want my share too.
Well, I get to see all kinds of birds. You like bird watching, get blueberries.
Oh, berries, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we did pretty well too. I had one bush that had some berries that looked like you described, so just one bush though.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, yeah. You can go online, read about mummyberry. You'll learn a
Mummy
lot.
berry? What do you call
Mummy, like
it? Egyptian mummy?
Mummy.
Okay. I'll look it up. Thanks.
Hey, folks.
Hi, AJ.
Nice office,
Yeah.
AJ.
Bit of a crazy week.
Yeah, how are you doing? Are you in this part of the country at all? Or are you far away?
I am. I'm in New Haven right now.
That's
but,
far away. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm back tomorrow.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I think we're just waiting on Jim, right?
Maybe I should call.
Yeah, would you mind, Bob?
Not at all.
I have to say, it was nice seeing people in person the other day at a meeting. It's like, I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
I'm also glad that,
who was able to go?
Everybody but Bob and you.
Right. Okay, good.
yeah,
So
Jim was there and Becky
The
was
select
there.
board was there. And two members from, well, Ann Hurd was there, and so was Jeremy from the school committee.
Jeremy Mayu.
I guess I'll just call the meeting to.
Jim was signing in
6
as I was talking.
Okay, great, good. So I think I mentioned in my email, I think this will be a shorter meeting, since I don't think there's unless folks have other topics. The only thing I have on the agenda is the debrief the Four Towns meeting. Very interested in hearing what people thought of it, and then we'll review some minutes, and I think that might be it for tonight. Hi, Jim.
Howdy.
All right, so why don't we just kind of quickly dispense with the minutes from September 17th. Jim?
Yeah, just a minor, George, section 5, F, it should be OPEB with a B and not a D.
Oh, thank you. Yep.
And just
I just noticed in section 3B, the budget request form to specify that it should be returned.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then really minor in section 4C22,
Yep.
just capitalize the I.
Yep. You got it.
And then one other little tiny thing, unless I'm wrong, in 5, the emergency phone overspend. I think should be 8071, maybe?
Oh,
No.
okay, well, maybe, let's look. No,
Unless I was unless I'm looking at the wrong.
oh yeah, you're looking at it right now?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
it's yeah, if that's what
you've
you
got
see,
it in
that's
front of
what
you.
it is. Okay,
Okay.
changed.
that's it from me.
Great.
I feel so nitpicky. I feel like Sister Mary Margaret.
Nitpick. Oh,
We can call you
nitpick.
that if you'd like.
No, I had enough of that, believe me.
Please, nitpick. I don't take it personal. It's,
Okay.
you should be right.
Good.
Anybody else have any suggestions or questions? I didn't have any. Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the September 17th minutes
I'll
as
second.
amended.
I'll second.
Right.
Arvin, I decide.
Oh, Bob, I think you're muted.
Sorry, Groves abstain.
Hemingway, aye.
Ashu, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, aye.
Okay, great. And George, do you know, like, do you know to send these minutes after
Oh
they're
yeah, I take care of it.
approved
Yes, I do.
to
I
Grace? Good.
used to
All
do on the personnel board, so I send it to
Okay,
Grace.
all right, so you know the deal. All
Yeah,
right,
she gets them
excellent.
real quick. Yeah,
Okay, perfect, thanks.
you're welcome.
All right. Okay, so why don't we dive into the Four Towns meeting? So I think Bob and I were the only folks that couldn't make it. Bob, I don't know if you had a chance, but there is a recording of the meeting if you did want to watch it, although we did get the slides. Becky had sent those around. There is on YouTube. I had a chance to watch it. Unfortunately, it didn't include any discussion that you guys might have had after the town breakout. So I don't know if there was much of a discussion, but you guys can fill me in.
Yeah,
George?
I think it was added later. I went in to
Oh, okay.
watch it, and it said it was under. I won't say under. I'll say under construction. I'm not sure what the word was, but I couldn't run the video, and then I ran it, and I went to the end, and our comments from the four towns were all there.
Oh, okay. So maybe they added that later. Okay, got it. All right. So I mean, I'll just kind of open the floor to anybody that wants to kind of share. Well, maybe I'll ask the question: was there any particular feedback provided by any of our reps that were in attendance that would be worth kind of sharing with Bob and I, since we weren't there?
No.
Not
Well,
really. Okay.
Well, so she gave her presentation, and you saw it in the you saw the document,
Yeah.
the deck, and then she asked us to caucus, and we in Shutesbury caucused, the select board, school committee, finance committee, and basically we all felt like, after watching the presentation, that taking the base down just didn't make sense. And so basically we did tell the town, we know it's early. We know that there's a lot to be done still, but we don't agree with adjusting the base down. And I'll say the one scenario she didn't run was leaving the base, but a 0% increase. Which I guess she doesn't really need to. We can do the math. It's a $2.7 million deficit. But it would have been interesting to see that, because Amherst at the end Pelham said the same thing as us. I'm sorry, Leverett said the same thing as us. Leverett said, we don't see any point in lowering the base. That's where we are. Pelham had no comment, because Pelham, John Trickey wasn't there, and the rest of the committees didn't want to address it. So they said, thank you for your nice presentation. And Amherst, Amherst wanted to see more information. They wanted to see population data, and they were promised that, not just population totals, but by different demographics. They really want to understand the trends in spending and that kind of thing. And then after the towns commented, they came back and said, we don't have that $355,000 extra we paid last year, and we're not going to be able to finance a budget at the level we had last year, basically is what they said. So those were the
Mhm.
comments.
Got it.
So George, can you tell me what the next move is, according to the people running the meeting, to the superintendent or Doug, or what's the next stage of this process?
Yeah, they don't expect to have another four-town meeting before November, and it probably might even be into December, I think is what I heard.
Mhm.
And then, they're going to do more number crunching and more negotiate. The school committee, I think, is going to be meeting, but not really. No.
Mhm.
If we have questions, we might want to submit those questions for them. But
So there was no sort of structural potential solution that didn't involve consolidating the middle and high school that was discussed, right? Or
that's her solution.
she
If
seems
you
pretty committed to,
Well,
at
it's the
least for
only way
now,
she's
moving
going to come
forward.
up with. It's the only way that I think the way she was putting it is, she's talking about meeting basic needs.
Mhm.
And in her mind, the only way we're going to.
Oh, you
Here.
Oh,
froze.
just lost George.
Froze.
It
right.
wasn't this time.
Susie, I see your hand up. Why don't you?
You lost me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we
Oh.
lost you.
We don't know what you said for a minute or 30
Oh,
seconds.
okay. Am I here now?
Yep, you are.
It says my internet connection is unstable, just like me. So, I don't know where that. So
Only way, he said, only way.
I think. Oh yeah. So the superintendent I mean, what I got out of it was the superintendent believes that the only way that she's going to meet the basic needs of the students
Mhm.
with a decreased budget is through savings from consolidating the schools. And she did have, if you look at the deck, she has some other things above and beyond the $2.3 million, $2.4 million that consolidation can bring us.
Right.
You know, she does have some other things, but in her mind, she could keep her programs, she could keep the level of education as is by consolidating the schools. And if they don't consolidate this, and if they can't consolidate the schools, they're going to be cutting into a lot of things.
So with the reaction to that proposal of structural reform was generally favorable or what?
I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean,
it wasn't, oh, go ahead. Susie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Susie, why don't you chime in?
So one thing that I took away is that the school committee met on like Tuesday. And there's a BCG committee or whatever. There was some meetings, and at the very end of that week, they came up with some of this direction. It wasn't, I don't believe it was the direction that had come out of at all from the school committee.
No.
So it was a bit of a surprise for us. It wasn't in the deck. It felt like she was working with some people and they felt this was the direction to take, but she would acknowledge that it hadn't been very fleshed out yet.
Mhm.
And so in some ways, I felt we were being told, we're figuring this out.
Mhm.
Don't put a lot of effort into reacting because we don't know all about it yet. It was a little alarming to me today to read in the Gazette, Scott Merzbach saying that when they considered consolidating the buildings in 2019, they ran into the idea that they needed a different fire sprinkler system that would cost $3 to $4 million, and that perhaps that had derailed some of this in the past. For her to
Yeah.
come up with it now, she might have a way around that, or she might have, but it was very clear that this was new to her on that Saturday, and that we need to wait until they keep working on what this actually looks like. Consolidating the staff in all levels, which I felt to me like the people that she worked with made an effort to sort of tap every level, which they're also calling performance-based budgeting. So I'm not sure how they came up with those different staff cuts. And I didn't understand during the meeting that it was all in terms of consolidating the building, but as I processed the deck today, And remember, we didn't see those slides. She's just
Yeah.
flashing them up on the screen and we're like, so today it makes me feel like, yeah, this is all this 2.4 million is based on bringing them into one building. And of course, people raise things like, well, so how does the 6th grade fit into that model? Are you talking about bringing them into also the high school building, or are you talking about something else? So
Mhm.
they're thinking about it. They're figuring it out. I gotta say, Doug Slaughter is on administrative leave, so he was not there, and
Yeah, I noticed that. I was
I
wondering
don't
about that.
know what
Okay.
his input to this is.
You won't have one.
He won't have one. So the words administrative leave in my mind is that he is it's not because he's taking a personal vacation. I don't know what it means, but what I do think it means is he's not in this planning part, or not significant in this planning part. So when Scott Mersbach puts that in the paper, it feels like that's sort of the flag. This is coming from a new person. It may be the opportunity to charge down that road, like John Trickey had suggested last year and other people had suggested in the past. And it might take having a brand new person, but it's not a fleshed out idea. So so it'd be interesting to see, because
Mhm.
there's apparently multiple committees involved in thinking. It's not only, Amherst FinCom and Amherst Town Council and this budget
Yeah,
group.
coordinating group or something. Yeah,
Oh, is that what the C stands for?
I think so. Mhm.
And then it's the superintendent's office, because it's their bailiwick. They got to figure it out. So I would say, how many meetings can you cram in between here and the next one where we're all sitting together and they have more specifics? But she basically said they spent 2 intense days before Saturday
Mhm.
to come up with what they
Working
did,
this up.
and it needs more thinking.
There seemed to be there was a woman that was supporting her with some of the details. Is that like an
Katie
interim
or
budget?
Shannon from finance
Okay, so
office.
is she functioning as kind of an interim
She
budget
was last
finance
year. They
director?
were in the
Okay,
office last year with Doug,
okay,
Katie and
okay,
Shannon.
got it. Okay, all right. Jim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, George perhaps can answer this best. Are the numbers that appeared on these sheets, all these possibilities, do they reflect our arrangement historically with are the numbers accurate, or are in terms of the way we have been calculating our contribution in the past? If anyone knows that, the answer to that.
No,
Well, it doesn't,
they're straight percentage increases, right? Depending on
Yeah,
the scenario
Mhm.
that are being applied
to the
to
budget.
everyone's FY25 budget.
So there's no
That's
step.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
there's no
I'll check.
Yeah, the
there's no
assessments weren't in
effort
there at
to,
all.
right.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of my questions I wanted to throw out and see if this was even possible. I had the thought that could we, and maybe we need to do this ourselves, but what would this budget look like if we actually applied the modified statutory method, let's say without guardrails, just to see how it plays out? If we used the total assessment required from that scenario one, the one that she presented as kind of the only scenario that resulted in a surplus and not a deficit. And I was wondering, like, I don't know, maybe if I wanted to kind of throw it out, perhaps to George, like if we thought it was possible to kind of reverse engineer a kind of a budget with assessments that actually applied, that applied the the statutory methodology, but to a total budget that is the number, which I think is 24,199,246. That was the total assessment required by scenario one. Do you think it would even be possible for us to do that, or would we need support from the finance people to actually do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to sit down. I mean,
Yeah.
if everybody was hitting the guardrail on the first scenario, it's a 4%
Yeah.
increase, and if everybody was hitting the guardrail, it's a simple math. It's 4%.
Right.
But if we take the total budget that she's showing under each of these scenarios and
Right.
subtract out the revenue, if we can figure out what she's using for revenue numbers, I'm not sure if that was in there. I know she showed 12 million. Yeah, 12,160,000. So yeah, she did. So then
Yeah.
we
George.
could take for each of those. Yeah, I probably
Put
could
your
do
hand
it.
on the camera.
So
I would
here's
think
what.
And she also, Katie or Shannon, which I think it was Katie.
Yeah, they said
also
everybody was
said
gonna hit.
they hadn't done that, and it wasn't like we're not gonna do it. And Amherst wondered about the guardrail model and
Right.
the options. So clearly we can ask the business office to pay
Yeah.
attention and give us those numbers. We don't have to
Okay.
do it ourselves.
All right. So just to clarify, what I'm asking is if we took this like this number right here, right? This is the total assessment required, right? And we actually used our our
Yeah.
modified statutory method to
Right.
calculate a contribution for each town, right? The average increase across all 4 towns is going to be a 4% increase, because that's where this number comes from. But for some towns it would be above 4, and for others, including us, it probably would be below 4. But anyway, I just thought it would be a good exercise for us to kind of know, even for no other reason than to know, like, how much are we deviating from our modified statutory method by going with this budget where we just apply a 4% guardrail to everybody.
So
that
the answer.
was my
So
thinking.
to just answer your question,
Mhm.
yes, I can do that.
Mhm.
That's simple enough, because when you have the total assessment amount,
Mhm.
as they're showing us in each of the scenarios, then all I have to do is apply our percentage. In fact, I can do it for everybody's percentage. The only caveat, it won't be the FY26 percentage, it would be the FY25 percentage. If
Right.
we use the statutory allocations that were going to be used before the guardrail, I could
Right.
easily give you these numbers. I'll do
Okay.
that, Julie.
But
Yeah.
they're,
Go
but
ahead,
they're
Becky.
gonna be different because you don't have the 25 numbers to back you up, like we waited for 24 numbers to establish the statutory numbers. I
Right.
mean,
So it's going to be a
Right.
2-year lag.
Right.
right. So it's gonna be off.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think for scale wise, it's
It
probably.
would get us in it might get us in a ballpark, just to, because I just want to be able to know, like, kind of how much are we deviating from our preferred methodology by doing this kind of a budget where we just apply a blanket increase and assess it to all 4 towns. Anyway,
Yeah, it's simple math. It
yeah.
really, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Okay, that would be useful to know. Becky, did you have another comment you wanted to make?
Oh,
Or
I'm sorry. That was the
okay.
So you really can't do the accurately do it until I think
So
it's
those numbers were available.
December. Yeah, or
Right.
January. You need the
Right.
numbers from the governor's office and DOER.
Right.
I'm sorry, DES.
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point, and I think we have general agreement on this committee that we wanted the region to use the statutory method with the 5-year rolling average. I think that
Right.
we should make them aware of that. I mean, did they just drop this thing off the radar completely? I mean, we should ask them to run it with using the statutory method. This is our method that we, as a region, have developed as the method to allocate our contribution. I think we should ask them to run it for us. I think it's reasonable for us to ask them to run it, because we want to keep that in their mind that this is what we want. I mean, don't we?
Absolutely. So I think we should definitely request it before the next,
Yeah.
4 towns meeting. Yeah. And I don't think we're the only town that wants to see it. I'm sure Amherst
Yeah.
wants to see
No.
it as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
others asked.
Yeah, I was afraid it was going to get overlooked. That was my question
No.
to some time ago.
Yeah.
No,
And just also to let you know, Bob, we've definitely communicated this because, I mean,
Yeah.
Susie and I actually met with the superintendent in August, and we spent quite a bit of time in that meeting talking about our concern about how how we didn't follow this methodology last year, and we told her, and we actually gave her, like, we followed up with some of the historical background. We told her that our expectation was that we would return to the method for
Yeah.
this coming year.
I think they have to
It-
be made aware of that again, I guess.
Yeah,
well, I
April?
think they are. I think they are aware of it. I mean,
Mhm.
it was noticed in the meeting, and and I think our requesting those numbers really makes more sense than us trying to come up with them on our
Yeah.
own, because it's giving a message that, this is what
Right.
the direction this town wants to go in.
Right. Susie?
And Amherst said it in their list of things,
Mhm.
that they wanted to look at the assessment method. And I
Mhm.
said it when I recapped what Shutesbury was concerned about.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
it's not that I think what happened is the model they started to wrestle with came out late in the week, and they put a lot together. It's not done, and we can bring these things up. It wouldn't surprise me, because they have some projections of lower budgets coming, that we ramp back towards it. We might not get there in one fell swoop, but we're pretty good at ramping.
Yeah.
And we might end up ramping to get this to work. But yes, the numbers they should make another column that shows it, and we have that for discussion.
Am I the only person who's concerned that there's going to be like quite a bit of public concern and sort of pushback about just the idea of consolidation? Or
No,
I was
think
like okay, yeah.
no, I know I didn't raise my hand, but I think there's going to be a huge amount of pushback, but personally, I think that it's time for us to look at that seriously again.
Yeah. Right.
This is, lots of schools do it, and we have the space, and yeah. But
I
think
see a
there'll
couple
be
hands up.
pushback.
Before I go to those hands, I just wanted to clarify, like, the sense I got was that, I'm not sure I actually heard it stated explicitly. Maybe it was and I missed it. But is part of the logic here that by doing consolidation, what it means is that the kinds of staff cuts that are required are less focused on instruction and sort of like student facing kinds of positions, and are more they're sort of more focused on administrative and sort of building infrastructure kinds of staff. Is that part of the rationale, and was that made explicit? Or
I thought so.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Susie.
As far as public pushback, we're talking Amherst is the main player. There will be pushback. And what she didn't come up with, because it's too soon in the game, is how it would affect what the use for the middle school building would be. And depending on what that is, it may change the capital costs that are coming down the track. So she might be able to sell the idea more to
Interesting,
the
yeah.
public, that it's going to change the capital picture, depending on how they think to use it. Somebody suggested that maybe they would think about leasing it to a charter school, and she said no. She said no, like immediately, and then she had to back up and say it in a sentence, but clearly it wasn't her idea that would happen. But there's because this is so new, there's no talk of how the middle school building. Somebody said, well, is a sixth grade going to still go to the middle school building? That's all too soon for what they're wrestling with. And I expect to hear much more of that, which will help respond to some of the public issues.
Got it. But to be clear, the timeline would be
25, 26, right? I mean, that is,
Yes.
That's what
that's
she's
why
got.
this is being brought up. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
George,
Yes, that 2.7 million that
Mhm.
she's using
right, that's 20,
to
that's FY
maintain the
26.
services is predicated on that. But yeah, one of the it was actually in the Gazette today. Apparently, one of the people attending the meeting, citizen of Amherst, warned the committee that there's going to be huge pushback on this issue. And also, what the reason I raised my hand is, do we think that it's even possible to do that in the next 11 months? The amount of planning involved, the reconfiguring of the building, the way they're going to set up their programs, it just doesn't seem like it's possible. I mean, I would definitely get behind it because I can't even imagine what it's going to be like if we can't get these cost savings. And I also
Yeah.
want to let everybody know that when I added up all the head counts, I came up with 37 people being laid off because it's in the slide. She notes it,
Yeah.
so I wrote it down for each one. That's 37 positions. That's if we consolidate.
Mhm.
Who knows what's going to happen if we don't consolidate?
Mm.
Jim,
I mean, I agree with George. I think the consolidation, I mean, one kitchen instead of two kitchens and once, it makes good economic sense. But my guess is that uh, Amherst folks are going to go ballistic over this because to put 6th and 7th graders in with high school students is usually a pretty tough sell in most communities, from what I understand. And I wonder about that. There was some talk about putting them in a separate part of the building, to sort of physically isolate them more and do things like that to try to sort of ease the worried parents about all of this. But and then of course there's the matter of of the 6th grade coming being placed in the same building as well. But I'm interested to see how they're going to pull this one off.
yeah. And can somebody explain this idea, the furlough idea?
Yeah.
I couldn't quite understand that. Was that like,
Well, they had to get
Yeah.
permission. I think that has to be pretty
That's it.
artfully arranged so that the unions and the teachers would agree to it.
Yeah.
That was it a 1 day or 2 day furlough to save a little bit of money?
Yeah.
That's
It's
gonna
not
be,
in, it's not in the plan, it's not in the numbers. It's
Okay. It's not.
beyond those numbers.
Mhm.
Okay,
And
got it.
her reaction, which I thought wasn't so politically savvy, was she said, well, they can take a furlough day or we'll be cutting teachers. So for somebody who's gonna go into APA negotiations, but I
Mhm.
do feel like all of this model, all of the across the board places that she's looking at is meant to tag everything. And therefore, everybody has a skin in the game. And
Yeah.
everybody can say, we worked together and got this result. That was her one not well responded comment is, but it's pretty far down the road and it's not in the number yet. So I think
Okay.
it's probably
All
not
right.
gonna be due.
All right,
Does-
that's a good clarification because I wasn't sure if that was part of the
Mhm.
restructuring plan that was going into the numbers, but it sounds like it's not. Okay.
Yeah, because
Um,
it has to be agreed to by the
Yeah.
union.
It's not
Right.
unilateral.
Yeah.
Mm.
I guess the only other question I sort of had while I was watching was like, and I don't think this is the case, but like it did occur to me, like, is the whole point of this basically to scare the crap out of everybody about like what this would actually require if the towns were to hold firm to this guidance, the kind of the various guidance that's been provided, like we can't go above 2.5% or we can't go 4%. Like, is there part of this that's like, okay, well, this is what you're gonna get, and there's no real alternative to this. And so, with the idea that like when people are actually confronted with the reality of what that means, maybe there's a little more flexibility. I don't know. That was just one thought that occurred to me. Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that just to embellish what you were saying, I
Hmm.
do think that it's going to be very difficult to there'll be a very, very hostile atmosphere to this structural reform if it's put forward. And we saw what happened last year when we had our budgeting process, that it was pretty far advanced, get derailed by the politics in town and, getting demonstrations and lots of publicity. But, so the superintendent has to be very skilled and smart to pull this off. I personally support structural reform. I've talked about it. I don't think the district was headed towards a very difficult financial circumstance because they didn't address some of the underlying structural issues like enrollment, school choice, and some other things. And I think it's a pretty interesting idea, and whether it can be fleshed out and to be workable and be acceptable to the financial people, number one, and then these parents, number two, and the union, number three, 2A. Like, yeah, that's a tough thing to pull off, but I do think it's a good idea, essentially to restructure the school.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very surprising concept.
It's
but
pretty bold, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Becky.
I just wanted to say, AJ, in response to your bringing up scare tactics,
Right.
we used to have a superintendent named Len Lubinsky,
Yep.
and that was his MO. Anytime we got a little questionable about the budget, scare tactics were unrolled. We were going to lose the gym teacher one year, the art teacher the next, but he was a master at it, and he often got his way.
Susie.
I don't consider it scare tactics. We left last year knowing there was a mess. And we talked about like starting early. And so here we are starting early, and she's projecting these numbers. I don't believe she's under projecting revenue. Lynn Grismer came up to our table before we started and she said, I don't see how we can make this happen. Well, that was before these slides.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so clearly, and those people are meeting with the BCG and blah, blah, blah. So they're in it already. And I don't think the superintendent is just trying to show only the worst case scenario or only solutions nobody can agree to.
Right.
By starting a meeting now, it was like, put it out there. What she's not saying that last year Amherst, some people in Amherst wanted is, well, what teachers do you mean? What programs do you mean? And the superintendent hasn't gone into that. She hasn't gone into the detail because they said, you start doing that, teachers are going to leave. If we know the art department's going to be cut, why would the art teacher finish the year? So she's not going there. And it is a financial mess. And so I think she's really offering in good faith some possibilities, and it is scary, but it does give towns time to start looking at their revenues and figuring out what they can actually come up with and then sell the cuts that they think need to happen. And they're going to have a hard time doing that.
Yeah, I was right. I mean, it's separate and apart from the proposal here. I was a little surprised by, and I think I read this in the Gazette article that you referenced but that the enrollment numbers looked like they were dropping like a considerable amount from last year, right? I'm trying to find that.
Yeah, no, I can read it for you if you want.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it said, let me just get to that part of it. I think it was,
I have it here.
Okay.
1,172 students are expected in the regional schools, down 3% from the 1,210 enrollment as of October 1st, 2023. That kind of alarmed me because I felt like I know that there's been a kind of a long historical trend that we've talked about and they've shared data with us, but I had kind of been under the impression that at least in the last few years. I mean, obviously there was kind of weird stuff around the pandemic, but like that things had kind of flattened. So I was a little alarmed to read that. And then I was also trying to imagine, and I don't think anybody can really answer this question, but like what does what is the potential consequence of this kind of restructuring for losing additional students? Like, is this the kind of pretty radical change to the way our school looks and operates that might actually result in more students leaving because they don't like the idea of a 7-12 school? And nobody can answer that question, right? But it was something that occurred to me. Could we be in an even worse position enrollment wise by doing this kind of a thing? Jim and then George.
Yeah, I'm not sure they addressed that question, but wasn't there a number given for the number of kids the high school building could accommodate? What it was designed to do, which was considerably, significantly above what it looks like the enrollment might likely be in the coming year.
The capacity was 3,000.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
it was something, I
enrollment they
remember.
thought would be around 1,100. So they say 7 through 12 will fit in there easily.
Easily, yeah.
Space can be worked out.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if the trends turn, they've got capacity to pick up some new students. I mean, to answer that question about losing students, I think her goal is, her belief is, if we consolidate the school, we can maintain our programs, we can then work on a better outcome for our students and improve them and actually make the school attractive. The way she's viewing it is, this is the first step in trying to improve what we have to offer to make us more competitive. I mean, that's what this whole ed reform thing is, you know, allowing these state funding of charter schools to do.
Right. That's a pretty big bet, but that's a good goal to have. But I thought I
She
heard
did
also
allude to
something
that.
yeah, I thought I heard her say something to the effect that, like, implying that the middle school building could also eventually become, like, this is long term, but a place where there's some kind of alternative program that could compete with charter schools and maybe reduce the number of students that are choosing out to charter schools. Did I read that right? I mean, did I hear that correctly?
That was called
Susie, you're nodding?
innovation program, the innovation schools. They could
Okay.
apply for that and perhaps create one.
Mhm.
But, you know, given that this is all new, that's
Right.
still in the works.
Mhm.
She
That's a
also
long-term
showed
thing.
us a slide that had more different, it wasn't a slide, it was a screenshot or a document she had that showed much more population information, and they said they were going to send it out. It wasn't in this packet. We can ask for it. It has a lot of FTEs and a lot of data, and so we can see that also.
Mhm.
Aren't
Jim?
Yeah, aren't other schools in our area like Northampton? I don't remember how this was addressed at the meeting, but aren't a lot of other schools pulling exactly the same scenario? In other words, consolidating school buildings in order to be able to deal with the cost of all of this? Do you remember anything about that?
I mean, I know that there are a number of 7-12
Yeah,
regional schools in our area, but I don't know about any other towns that are, like, looking to make this change. But
I think
that's
it's
something to
early
keep
for
an eye on.
everybody. We're
Yeah.
one of the earliest ones starting.
yeah.
They cited Frontier and Hampshire Regional as 2 7-12 buildings, and they
Yeah.
did not cite any others, and I don't know, they didn't cite anybody else taking this step. But Massachusetts is a pretty large state, and we're all in the same bucket, so it could
Yeah.
be that is how they'll figure out some of this stuff by looking at other models.
And it may make it easier to, to sell this to the Amherst population as well. I mean, if other schools in the state are faced with the same problems that we are, and I'm sure they are, then this consolidation is not going to be a big surprise, perhaps.
Right.
I don't know. Just guess.
Yeah. George?
Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say. I totally
Susie?
lost it. That's what I hate about taking minutes.
There's one other thing they flew by was choice. Maybe they would put a pause on choice because they
Thank you.
often
That
get
was
it.
kids
Yeah,
choicing in who need a lot of services. So they might choose to do that. And the other thing that was mentioned a couple times was the drain that charter schools make on the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So we don't have any direct control over that, but Mindy Dawn was there. It's been said, it's going to be said again. Charter schools is a bane of our existence.
Yeah, she called it pausing school choice for a year.
Right.
Okay. And the rationale for that is that we're actually expending more on education costs for those students than we're getting on choice reimbursements.
Especially sped students.
But that doesn't make sense, though.
Really?
Can
I
you
mean,
elaborate, Becky? Yeah.
Well, with the sped, I mean, I've always heard that the sped money is to follow the child. So if you take in a sped student, the homeschool, so if Shutesbury sent their kids to Amherst, Shutesbury would have to pay Amherst all of the sped costs. That's always been my understanding. So when they said that, maybe that could be a mistake in her comment.
But how do you calculate that? If a student moves into the high school from another community and they're getting an IEP, how do you put a dollar value on that IEP?
What you pay the teachers and the program you provide them for. You do.
Right, but you got a teacher who's providing sped services to 10, 20 different kids. If you outplace what you say would be easy to track.
Right.
But if they just
But
stay in the
either way,
school.
my understanding, George, is that the sped services are to be paid for by the original birth, the hometown school.
So
That's interesting. Yeah, because I had always kind of operated under the assumption that the choice in was kind of a net positive for the budget, and so I'm sort of surprised to hear like the idea that freezing it is actually something that so the only explanation that would sort of make sense is if we were spending more than we're getting reimbursed, but which
Or if we were
sounds like
losing
it's
more than we're
yeah.
getting in, if we were making money.
Well,
on it.
there's that, right? But we can't control, right? We can't pause on students choicing out, right? But the idea would be to pause.
I don't
Am I
think you can
wrong?
choice out if you're in a district that doesn't allow choicing in.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, got it.
No, you can
Bob.
choice out.
Yeah, so any
can
parent can
still
decide to
choice
send their
out.
kid anywhere they want.
Yes,
Okay.
any parent in the state. But the schools
regard-
have the ability to say no choice.
All right.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was the other way.
maybe
Okay, Bob.
I'd like to just say, I've been on this choice issue for a long time. And so to me, the central fact is this. If you take a choice student and you get $5,000 and you get no Chapter 70 money. So if the cost per student for your operation averages out to say 25,000, which is the case for Amherst at least, that excludes costs, then you're getting 5,000 for a choice in student. I mean, how can that be help your budget if you're consolidating and you're reducing the number of students you're pausing choice? You get a better ratio, you get a better cost per student, because those students, those choice students, if you continue to bring them in at the numbers they're coming in now, they're going to make your consolidation more difficult at very little remuneration. I guess I can't pronounce that word for some reason. Very, very little money for those students compared to your own native born students, which are funded by the Chapter 70 money and frankly by the taxpayers in your town. So yes, choice students costly. If you're just filling empty seats and trying to get your classrooms to the proper size to make them function properly, yeah, that's an argument for bringing choice students in, but it's not a financial. It's not financially.
Yeah.
If it affects your budget, it's going to be costly.
No.
Susie.
I think this discussion has too many unknowns on our side. So rather
Right.
than discuss it, I think it needs to be formed into questions. If people have specific questions, they can send to the central office to help flesh out our discussion. That would be more useful to me than us trying to figure out from our seats here tonight.
Right. So let's do this. If folks have any kind of follow-up questions of this nature, maybe we should sort of consolidate and collect them from our committee and then share an email with the superintendent and her team with a list of those questions. Does that make sense? So maybe for our next meeting, if folks want to just take a few minutes and draft any questions that they have, I think this last one is certainly one that we should ask about. But I think there are others that have come up. And let's at our next meeting, let's try to sort of pull together those questions and sort of make a list that we can forward. Does that sound good? Okay. All right. That's it I had. Does anybody have any additional, George? Yeah.
No, oh yeah, I do have one question.
Yeah.
So how do we handle the minutes for a meeting like that? Should I have taken minutes? I took a lot of notes, so I can easily put together minutes. I assume that I have to.
Becky, what do you think? Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right.
Okay, and how all right. I don't think they're gonna be super detailed, but,
They don't.
Whatever you have.
okay, you
Yeah.
got it.
If you just want to package your notes together without spending a lot
No,
of time.
yeah, it's no problem.
All right. Susie?
I have two other business things. I did get all of the information sent out to boards and departments for the FY26 proposal, but I think it would be good if all of us liaisons go ahead and contact those people, say, did you get it? Do you have any questions? This is the timeline. I think it would be good to make some personal contact. And I sent it all out by email, but I'm going to use a phone to make sure that it got there. And the other
Right.
question I had was, did the our town report get edited and sent to Janice?
April?
Yes, 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 yes. It has been edited and sent to Janice.
Wonderful. Terrific.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks to both of you. So yeah, if liaisons want to connect in the next week with their department heads that they're assigned to, and just make sure that they saw the email. I can't remember. Do we also put stuff in their box? That I know
Yeah,
that
we did.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good for us to know as well. That would be great. Anything else? Any other?
Well, something I read in the paper
Business?
today is there's 2 hires in the town of Shutesbury.
We have
Also, there was a resignation in the town of Shutesbury.
Yeah.
I
Highway
haven't heard
department
this
is gonna-
news.
New boss.
So our highway superintendent resigned about 2 weeks ago. And the select board accepted his resignation. I'm sorry, yeah. And at the last meeting on last Tuesday, and also at the same meeting appointed a new land use clerk, Matteo Pangalo, and a new admin secretary, Abby Hernandez. So please come by and meet Abby Hernandez. She's very helpful and supportive, and she's newly here from Texas. But her dad lives here. It's a town that she's very, very much appreciating. And she'll help with all kinds of things in the future.
What was the story with the superintendent again? The superintendent resigned, and a new superintendent was an interim superintendent was appointed.
Interim, yeah.
At this point, the select board met on last Wednesday with David Grenier, the second person at the highway department next to Steve. He has worked in 3 other towns as an equipment operator. He has quite a depth of experience and with management as well. and he has been appointed contingent on the contract. So he's continuing on in his position and has taken the reins and is doing his best. The highway department, as you know, they were taken by surprise as the rest of us, so they're doing their best to carry on.
Are they looking for another person now to add to the department?
At this point, Mike Reski is working a 32-hour week as they get their feet under them after we deal with contract for Dave. We'll start thinking about advertising for another person. They made it through the paving project that had already been halfway set, most of the way set up by Steve, but luckily Dave was close enough and aware enough of everything going on to successfully have completed that project. But as far as the budget goes, he has not yet looked at it, so he has, I'll give him a run through. I know Bob is gonna probably sit down with Dave and talk budget with him, but that's an area he has not yet reached to. He's just taken on doing the warrants and payroll and filling out the logbook with all activities and keeping things going. So his next hurdle will be getting to know the budget.
So,
Bob,
yeah, with that in mind, I think we probably should schedule him a little later so that we can get him.
yeah, I was just pulling that up.
Get his budget together. It'll take a little time, more than it might have with Steve, who had 1 year in.
Yeah, I mean, we had highway and fire slated for our first, so we should definitely give him some more time. So I'm thinking, let's see.
Tricky
Maybe
part
we-
you have to
Before we
remember
move-
is that
Susie?
Before we
tricky
move
part
it,
is
the
the
last,
winter weather throws him too. So if you go into
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
you never.
yeah,
Right.
and before we move it, we know that what happened with Steve is he did his best first shot and he had to come back. It's likely to be the same thing. So moving it later doesn't particularly change that first shot.
Mhm.
So I don't know if because of the snow plowing and all that,
All right.
might not be needed to move it later.
Well, Bob,
It's
do you want to touch
November.
base?
I'll touch base with him,
Bob,
but I think we
Do
should
you want
just
to touch base with him? Yeah.
move him out at least a month or something anyway, so, you know.
Mhm.
So, we'll give him some time to,
All right.
I'll meet with him and we'll work together with the Becky and, to help him work on the budget and get some draft at least.
Okay, great. And just so you know, highway was initially slated for November 12th. So
Okay.
that's
All
the
right, well, I'll
date.
meet with him and talk to us. Our next meeting is
Yeah.
coming up soon, so.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Overnight aside.
Grove's eye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Salvador, I.
And Stein, I.
Mhm.
Great.
Oh,
Thanks,
and
everybody.
Our
Hey,
next
AJ.
meeting is the 24th. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
October 15th.
Yep, October 15th.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll write it down.
Hey,
All
AJ,
right.
the Miracle
Yeah.
Mets.
Yeah, I'm a Yankees fan, but yeah.
Oh, I thought you were a Mets fan.
No. But I've
All
got
right,
plenty
safe
of Mets
travels,
people in
AJ.
my life. All right, thanks everybody, and thanks for covering all the coverage on Saturday. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, wish
All
you
right.
were there. All right.
All right, take care.
Good night.
All right.
Night, everybody.
Good night.